Back in 2020, I was living in an apartment with a roommate who acted as if they wanted to kill me. I had just dropped out of college, was living paycheck to paycheck, and had just recently been laid off of my bartending job due to the pandemic. The first night of lockdown, a friend of mine came over with some shrooms, and I decided to take it with him for the first time. That first trip opened my eyes to the game that I was playing all my life, that we're all playing, unbeknownst to me until that moment. From then on, I started treating life as such, a game, wherein I was no longer the unconscious NPC drifting from one job to another and had leveled up to become the player. And if you give me the next 20 to 25 minutes of your time, I will share something with you that quite literally has the potential to transform your entire financial reality as it did for mine and those that I've worked with. Towards the end of this masterclass, I'm going to give you the 3 most important levers that one can focus on in order to exit the matrix and become financially independent. And by the end of this masterclass, my intention is to completely transform your way of thinking about money and to give you a practical approach for how to exit the matrix and become independent in 2 years or less. I would highly advise that you take notes in this masterclass, as I am about to give you the literal keys to your freedom, if you choose to follow through. Ever since 2018, I've been on the pursuit of my dreams. It's led me to some different side quests here and there, but over time, I started becoming obsessed with this notion that there are rules to this game that we're all playing. How the 1% or the elites create, grow, and protect their wealth by leveraging those same rules to their benefit rather than to their detriment. What I've come to learn through my own application of these rules is what I think to be the fastest and most efficient way for you to access your first 100K liquid. Not for the sake of making money just to make money, but in order to exit the matrix, to fund your dreams, and to co-create with God the impact that you were meant to leave behind on this earth, all without having to work more hours at your job, build a following online, or sell courses on how to sell courses, without having to sell your soul by doing things that aren't in alignment with your highest good. Now, I promise you, we're going to unpack all of that, so bear with me here. First, why should you even listen to me? Great question. My name is Mark, pseudonymously known as Almachize. Remember who you are, let's strive together. I know there's rainy days, it'll all get better. We'll make it through the storm, it's not forever. Yeah. I'm an artist, investor, author of Internet Money, and the founder of Alchemy Academy, a private wealth mastermind where we help conscious rebels, black sheep, and the aspiring creators of the world exit systems that have been leeching off of their life force energy so that they can instead direct that energy towards the pursuit of their dreams and for the kingdom of God. I'm not going to speak on what exactly your dreams are, because that is for you to decide, my friend. However, no matter who you are, money is going to be a necessity, a tool in this journey that will help you actualize the dreams that you have. We cannot escape this reality that we live in, and we shouldn't try to. Our best bet is to play the game and be in it fully, to learn the rules of the game and play it well so that we can use this wealth and this abundance to co-create heaven on earth. That is my mission. And in 2020, when I shared with you the awakening that I had in that apartment, it kickstarted the mission that my soul came down here to fulfill. And boy, was I met with challenges. Trials by fire. The following years I spent living with this pit in my stomach as I slaved away for a check that barely kept my head afloat, living just to survive, knowing that I had this calling and not being able to fully fund it, that not having money was the only thing in the way of me being of service to those that I was meant to. I slept in a mold-infested home for years and dealt with it because it offered the cheapest rent option back when I was living in California. This continued on for years until 2023, when I started learning how to play the money game, like the 1%. Within that year, I accessed over $150,000 in business and personal funding, which I then used to invest in the markets. That following year, going into 2024 and 2025, I multiplied that money into the multiple six-figure range, allowing my wife and I to become financially independent. I began traveling the world to immerse myself as a student of life. I started building a soul-led online education business, and I began funding my music and online brand, Chosen Few, as an independent artist to expand the message that God so beautifully placed inside of my own beating heart. Which leads me into what we've been able to do for those we've worked with. I've had students like Xavier work with me because his eyes began opening to the injustice of the system. The matrix, if I may. He reached out to me one day and told me that he was tired of slaving away at his HVAC job, and he was tired of not being able to set aside the future that he envisioned himself providing for his wife and his newborn son. He quickly realized the hamster wheel that he was on, and as the sole provider of his family, if he did not do something, he would be completely dependent on another man or corporate entity to feed his family, and this did not fly by him. In less than 2 years, we were able to help him access over $55,000 in funding, which he then went on to multiply over 3x. And by the time you're watching this, he may already have accessed more in funding and have gotten higher yields.
It's not even at the highest right now.
He went from being trapped in the rat race with little hope of escaping to exiting the very system that his family was dependent on, and is well on his way to becoming the wealthiest in his entire lineage. I've also had a couple students come in and work with me for just a few months, going from rock bottom, no money set aside, to 10K liquid, all while paying for their bills. And I know what you're thinking. We have to use debt in order to invest, right? And to that I say, 111% yes. You've already been ingrained and brainwashed into thinking that going into 6 figures of debt for college tuition was the move. Trading the best years of your life for a piece of paper that would not guarantee the 6-figure job that you wanted. Also that you can slave away 40 to 60 hours a week in order to pay back the 6-figure debt you just accumulated. Make it make sense. You also might be sitting here shaking in your boots about your low FICO score. My friend, I get it. I've had students take their credit score from the low 500s all the way to the 700s so that they're set up for 6 figures in funding. The game that the lower to middle class play is trading their time for money and then turning around and using that money or that debt to pay for things that will not generate or grow their money for them. The upper class, the elites, the 1%, they trade dollars or debt for money. They make money work for them instead of the other way around. If you can take anything away from this, this would be the piece that I'd want you to write down and really sit with. And this is precisely what I've done for my family, and this is what I've helped others do as well for theirs. Because when you can learn to make money work for you 24/7, 365, while you sleep, while you play, and while you build, the sky is the limit for what you can do, and you are no longer dependent on detrimental systems for taking care of your financial needs. Now that you know a little bit about who I am, what we've been able to do for others, I want to share with you the why behind why this work is so important in today's day and age. I'm also going to share our approach and framework inside of Alchemy Academy with you shortly after. I call it the 3 levers for financial independence. Take note of this as I will dive into this much deeper with you in a little bit. First, it is important that you not only understand the why behind our work, but that you also understand it as well. There are 5 interlocking systems that together form the most sophisticated containment structure ever built. This was not done through conspiracy. This was done with intention. A system of compounding incentives that rewarded compliance and punished awakening. I'm talking about the education system, the food system, the legal system, the entertainment system, and the financial system. There are likely more that I am not including, like the healthcare system, but for the purpose of simplicity, it can be boiled down to these top 5, and they all feed into each other. Systems on systems that feed off of your energy in order to function. For example, the education system does not teach you to think for yourself. They instead ingrain this idea that you must memorize this information and be graded on your ability to regurgitate it. The system trains you slowly over a decade to become a slave from K through 12 and even through college. And what is a slave if not someone who is told what to think, told when to go to the bathroom, told when to eat? You never question it because it's a quiet hypnotic trance that has had its clutches on you even before you're old enough to understand. You're never allowed to question the teacher, the principal, or the adults, and doing so meant punishment, timeout, detention, expulsion. Once you've quote unquote graduated, you've been so indoctrinated that it becomes difficult to question what is right and what is wrong. The food system does something quieter and more insidious. A body running on processed junk, inflammatory compounds, and chemical additives is a body operating below its threshold for clarity. You cannot question the matrix when your mitochondria are compromised. You cannot sustain the cognitive and spiritual voltage required for genuine transformation when your nervous system is perpetually dysregulated. The food system does not need to silence you. It just needs to keep you foggy enough that the silence maintains itself. The legal system is built on a language most people were never taught to read. The distinction between a natural person and a corporate entity, the difference between a statute and God's law, the private, corporate, dead speak nature of the banking system. These are not secrets in the conspiratorial sense. They are simply things you were never told, because a population that understood the actual rules of commerce would be a population with leverage, and leverage changes the negotiation. The entertainment system does what the others cannot do directly. It harvests your attention and keeps it looping. Every hour that you spend consuming content that is designed to provoke a reaction out of you without giving you a resolution is an hour not spent on questioning, creating, or building. The economy runs on the conversion of human life force, time, attention, and creative energy into dollars. Entertainment is the mechanism that keeps that conversion running voluntarily and continuously, without the person giving it ever realizing what they have just traded by doom scrolling away. And then there is the financial system itself, the one that takes the paycheck you earned with your life, strips it through taxes designed for a different era, prints it into oblivion, hands you back debt instruments structured to keep you servicing them indefinitely, while the nation we once called the United States of America is trillions of dollars in debt. And then they tell you that if you are disciplined enough, if you budget correctly, if you sacrifice enough, if you wait long enough, you might eventually approach something resembling security. Not freedom, security. And only if nothing goes wrong for the next 40 years. The system does not need to cage you. It only needs to keep you unaware that you are already in one. The spiritual community's answer to this is personal development, mindset work, manifestation, the law of attraction without the material mechanics to back it. It's basically hustle culture rebranded as empowerment. The financial education industry's answer is discipline. Budget harder, save more, wait longer. As if the problem were personal and the solution were behavioral, rather than structural and requiring a different set of tools entirely. Neither of those addresses the actual architecture of the problem. Neither hands you the knowledge of how the game actually works, and neither of these gives you access to the very rules of that game. And so you, the person, remains in the game, unbeknownst to the rules, working harder, thinking more positively, optimizing your mindset, while the system continues quietly harvesting the one thing you cannot recover: time. The word alchemy does not mean the turning of lead into gold. That was always a metaphor. What the alchemists were actually describing was the transformation of the base self into the sovereign self, the process by which a person, through genuine inner work and outer application, becomes something that could not have existed before they began. That is what we are in service of. Not wealth accumulation as an end, wealth as the practical expression of an internal becoming. Money as a neutral amplifier, a mirror of who you are being in every single moment, and a tool for those who have ideally done the work to become someone worth amplifying. The word education comes from the Latin word educare, to lead forth, not to pour in, to bring out what is inherently already within you, not to force feed information down your throats and force you to memorize it, otherwise you fail. Not so that you can be filled as a vessel with other people's knowledge and then call it learning. It is to lead forth what is already within you, the latent genius, the buried sovereign, the person who already knows something is wrong and simply has not yet been given the language, the tools, or the permission to act on that knowing. That, my friend, is the purpose of Alchemy Academy. Not to teach you about money, to lead forth the version of you who is always going to be free, who has always been free, deep down. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why now? Great question. We are living through the largest wealth transfer in recorded history. Artificial intelligence, decentralized finance, and the collapse of institutional trust are simultaneously destroying the old map and opening up new territory. The adoption curves are early. The information asymmetry still exists. The window is open for those who move with knowledge, intention, and attention, rather than those who wait for the mainstream to validate what the early movers already understood. Is still open right now. However, it will not remain open indefinitely. There is also something else happening that is harder to quantify, but no less real. The generation coming of age right now is the most spiritually awake, most systemically skeptical, most ready to question population in modern history. They do not need to be convinced the Matrix is real. They already feel it. What they need is the knowledge, the community, and the practical infrastructure to actually do something about it. That readiness is not a marketing window. It is a moment of genuine cultural inflection. And the right response to a moment like this is not another course about mindset. It is a transmission that actually changes what is possible for you, which brings me to our unique approach that we have learned through trial by fire, through experiential and embodied wisdom that we have iterated over the years and are beyond excited to share it with you. Remember that Venn diagram I shared with you earlier? Here it is again. We've boiled down the 3 most important levers that one can focus on in order to exit the matrix and become financially independent in 2 years or less. Think of this as your self-sustaining wealth machine. Each lever feeds into the other and makes the other function more efficiently, allowing you to increase your net worth like no other. The first lever is your money generator, how much money you make. The second lever is your money grower, how much your money multiplies. The third lever is your money giver, how much money you give away towards taxes or put back into your wealth machine. The problem with people who are financially poor is because they don't understand this framework. Think about the problems that plague the average person right now. The average person has less than $100K in ready-to-use money. Their money loses buying power each year due to inflation and currency debasement. They only have one way of making money instead of multiple. They're only investing 60% of their money because of taxes. They have no money that comes in even while they sleep. The list goes on and on. And even if you make enough money at your job to be able to set aside an extra $1,000 each month, which, by the way, most people actually don't, if that money is not put into vehicles like growth assets or businesses, you will always be stuck trading your time for money, dependent on a job or corporation. Even if you have the assets, the moment you sell or make money out of that, if 40% is going towards taxes at the end of the year, that's taking a significant amount of your hard-earned labor and ensuring that your wealth machine cannot run as efficiently. Our approach inside of Alchemy Academy solves for all 3 of these levers. We help you with your money generator and your money grower through funding and investing, which allows you to have multiple ways of making money even while you sleep, and eventually get to a point where you have 6 figures and ready to use money. The money giver lever is something we help graduates of our academy solve for when it comes time to that, helping them shift their assets from the public to the private via trusts, which is a whole nother topic for another day. Notice how money that you generate can grow into new ways of earning that work for you even when you're sleeping. That money that you're multiplying, depending on how protected from taxes you are, allows you to feed more into your money generator. This is the approach that we solve for. This is the complete blueprint for financial independence. Something I want to note too is that social media tends to focus a lot on the $1 million or becoming financially free. That's good and all, but if you're coming from a place of dealing with those problems I mentioned earlier, your probabilities of success from having less than 10K in savings to $1 million is very, very, very low. Versus if you were to go from 10K to 100K, your probabilities of success is a lot higher. And this is why we focus on this piece. Financial independence is a step towards financial freedom. I can only teach from where I've been. And in order to be in integrity, I would rather teach and speak on becoming financially independent, to exit the matrix of these systems I shared with you earlier, and to fund your dreams so that you can do whatever it is that you're meant to do on this earth, and that you have the choice to do that. This is much more possible than you think. my friend. People go into multiple six figures of debt all the time, whether it be for houses that don't appreciate nearly as much as the growth assets we invest in, or for college, or for things that simply will not add to your wealth machine. If you've made it this far in this masterclass, I thank you for giving me your time, your attention, and energy. I know how valuable that is. I know also that this can be a lot to take in, but I trust that you were led here for a reason. And so with that being said, I would like to extend an invitation for you to apply for Alchemy Academy. And we'll talk more about how we can help you turn your dreams into reality, to help you reach your financial reality in 2 years or less, rather than slaving away for decades, which is actually what most of society will do if they do not master these levers that I just shared with you. To help you reach your financial goals without having to rely on growing a social media account, to become financially independent without having to work more hours at your job or to sell things online that you don't want to sell. Those things you absolutely can do, but our unique approach ensures that you don't have to be reliant in those things in order to exit the matrix. I trust God that this masterclass was of value to you. I would not be here today if it was not for the Creator. And so I'd like to give credit where credit is due. If you resonate with everything that I've said here and you want our help to expedite your journey to independence, tap the link below, fill out your application, book your call with us, and I'll see you on the inside, my friend. Peace and prosperity.